The lunar matrix is another alien structure that transmits mind control programs into the Earth's magnetic field and perpetuates spiritually abusive belief systems into the subconscious layers of the masses. This originates from non-humans and is alien-based technology used to enforce the main goals of the archontic deception strategy. So the lunar matrix, of course, with the moon, Saturn moon matrix, we have to be able to override those programs. It doesn't make the moon evil, and it's not that it's all artificial. There's different octaves to every planetary, body. So when we move to the higher octave of the lunar energy, it connects us with Tiamat, it connects us with things previous, and just the more ancient energies of the mother, not this kind of artificial mind control satellite kind of thing. So higher octaves of the lunar energy are experienced through like the outer planets and the initiations that the outer planets give us. They connect us with our higher heightened intuition. And so what the energies of our artificial moon do is, a lot of the challenges that we experience as women, and a lot of the disconnect that men feel from their own inner feminine, because this is the patriarchal program. The Saturn moon matrix is basically the patriarchal program, and it's an alien agenda. So it has nothing to do with, oh, men, they've just been so controlling for so long. I mean, both men and women have been targeted. Men have had their limbs blown off in war. They've been taught to not cry, and, women have been largely, disempowered. So, and we're getting all that back. And it's the love story. It's the sacred union. It's the balance and harmony, and it's our energetic body. So this love story, when we really embrace the greater love story, I mean, think about what that does to our physical vessel and our energetic body and our chakra system and our DNA. I mean, that is where all this heals. And it's not about, the partner. So if one's single, it's like, oh, okay, and I mean, a lot of people do feel this desperation. Where's my soulmate? Is this my twin flame? I mean, we are built with this inner longing, this soul longing that literally gives us the gumption to kind of wake up and roll with it all. It's just kind of like we're being, it's a magnetic energy, attraction, soulmate energies. It's all the electric energies, the masculine, and the magnetic energies, the feminine, and the magnetic energy has been, like I said, targeted on this planet. Basically what they're trying to do is keep a true love situation from being successful. So relationships are targeted. And the programming that we're raised with sometimes doesn't make us seek soulmates. We end up with, abusers or narcissists or control freaks, or we're not emotionally got our heads together and might not be an easy partner. So I mean, this is all what the greater picture is all about. And this is what's being targeted, so that we don't switch on our dormant DNA and we don't experience this greater love story, the Christ Sophia, coming together in our hearts and experiencing that with people that we meet in the world. And, so we walk around with broken hearts and frustrations, anxiety, lack of self-worth, and just a lot of pain. And yeah, we can't really advance ourselves when we're in that energy. So it's very, very important to get out of toxic and bad relationships, and join the cosmic Gaia community and find like-minded people that might help you, through that kind of thing. I wouldn't say it's like a support group, but anyway, it's been really fun, and helpful, I think, to people, I hope. So anyway, we're going through like this breakup. Each one of us, has our own stories and versions, and how that plays into the larger picture, and how we experience it. I mean, we impact the collective consciousness when we begin to step up to the plate and make these kind of changes in our lives and recover our self-worth, to give us the just the motivation and just desire to just get out of toxic relationships, bad relationships with food, bad relationships with everything. I mean, we're kind of in a relationship with, so we want the healthiest partners, and the way we relate to society. We can cut ourselves off and divorce ourselves from the negative aspects of it and where it pulls us in, and how some of these projects have created such distortions and lies and deceptions in the media. We can divorce ourselves from that and enjoy things that are healthy for our minds. So we want to feed good food and good energy and good dynamics with our physical body, mental body, spiritual body, emotional body. We're elemental beings. And everything about the elements connects with the grid systems, right? So when we looked at this, you see water, air, earth, fire, and then we got the ether. So, and this corresponds to our DNA. Are the nucleic acids in our DNA are elemental. So our DNA connects with the earth grids. It's like a replica in a lot of ways, right? Well, not in a lot of ways, it actually is. The the connection that we have with the true tree of life, 12 spheres, which represent stargates on the planet. And now this 13th gate is something that, we're awakening within ourselves. So, and then we impact the planetary grid network when we do that work to connect with the organic elements of the original mother energy and her circulation and her true body and essence, planetary consciousness, planetary body. The rings of Saturn, according to David Icke, are a massive broadcast system broadcasting a fake reality. DNA holds all the information we will ever need to build and maintain the human body. Researchers at Boston University and Harvard Medical School studied the 98% of our DNA that remains unable to be decoded, and this is called trash DNA. So all this trash, these scrambled fire codes, are literally the distortions of the masculine and feminine and their electric and magnetic energies of us. So the fake reality is what they're, streaming through, that is a facade and it's false, while all this horrific stuff is happening behind the scenes, stealing the creative energy in order to be able to create the artificial timelines and the artificial reality. So it's pretty horrendous how successful they've been, and hard not to get bummed and angry every once, I think people can relate, and that's okay. We got to feel it to heal it. So anyway, the rings of Saturn, the Saturn moon matrix. I'm not going to really get into that. I have in previous presentations about, Saturn, but I touch upon it a little bit. But the rings of Saturn are connected with junk DNA, transmits energy to the moon, and affects us on an unconscious level and keeps this stuff scrambled. So between that and the reversal grids and how all that connects, yeah, it's just like feeding these demons and this satanic energy. Okay. So the Saturn has a black cube. It holds a massive tank that acts as a harvesting station for blood sacrifice from human beings in any way imaginable. So it's like energy's collected in these places, particularly, the Stonehenge area where the Nibirian diodic crystal technologies exist. And then we got the Nephilim reversal grid. It literally collects energy that it's stolen from humans through manipulation in keeping us in a very, very low state and sort of this kind of 3D and this sort of like major disconnect. And we're just, products of society in these subpersonalities. And it somehow is able to contain it in this black cube. So anyway, our capacity to clear ourselves of false tyrannical authority and not fall for the facades is how we expose crimes, against humanity. Because once, we clear this stuff, we're able to see who's who. We're in a truth frequency. We can see truth. We can see through lies and deception. We have to find that authentic truth within ourselves so that we can navigate this experience, right? So, so this dark element of Saturn, how we're experiencing it in this lower dimension, keeps us in this enslavement agenda. When we move out of that enslavement agenda and find our true self, we can begin to function in the higher dimensional levels of Saturn, which relate to self-mastery and having the capacity to be a teacher and adopting disciplines that actually help us to thrive and actually, serve us. So as long as we're kind of under this net though, and as long as we're being fed from, we're unknowingly participating in the satanic agenda and the reptilian alien agenda, the negative alien agendas. So this is part of the duality, right? I mean, we're moving out of the duality into the tree of life, out from the tree of knowledge to the tree of life, but it's going to take self-knowledge. And that's why things like astrology can really, really help us to get to know ourselves better. So artificial intelligence systems have been designed and weaponized, specialized for emotional and ultimately spiritual harassment. This is so that the emotional and spiritual energies get lowered to the level that a machine can entrain, follow, mimic, match, record, modify, and replicate that energetic blueprint. If our consciousness is above this and not in the programming, we aren't as impacted. So we have to understand that, like, yes, AI is a very, very scary concept, but is it so scary when we know what it requires in order for it to be successful? I mean, it's artificial. So it's mimicking true intelligence. It's mimicking things that are organic, right? So in order for it to be successful, it has to upset us to the point of being able to, I mean, our vibration has to be low enough for it to be able to mimic, match, record, modify, and replicate that energetic blueprint. And then it like kind of creates this false reality, or we find ourselves more in negative synchronicities, not the organic kind, where the magic and flow helps us to connect with soulmates and our visions and dreams are beginning to manifest. And instead it's sort of like we keep bumping our head against the wall, maybe meeting people that trigger our wounds and traumas, and things that we might buy into and believe, as we see people do, that are very much about the divide and conquer. You know, where people have toxic hatred and judgments. I mean, AI is all about that, totally, you know. So this lower draconian energy and these things, these parasitic beings, you know, that want to feed on us, you know, require us to be in a very, very low vibration for the AI to even work, and for them to get that loosh, which represents, you know, the negative energy that they're able to draw out of people. So it's kind of a nightmare seeing everybody wearing masks and the jab thing. That's very concerning. But as I'll describe in the end, I feel the override frequency and something bigger is happening that offsets that energy signature, that Luciferian satanic energy signature. So anyway, but you know, every single person has the challenge of not getting caught in this AI, and avoiding transhumanism in the next level of this dark agenda is incredibly important. Of course, they're going to introduce it, make it sound like a good thing. And that is the total sabotage of the Aquarian age and what it really does represent. The higher Saturn, self-mastery, teacher, overcoming trials and tribulations, and satanic forces. Saturn's job is ultimately to strengthen us, similar to how resistance weight training builds muscle. We are in a spiritual boot camp here, and with the end goal of awakening to our true potential, understanding what is dormant and targeted, and rescuing those things like our junk DNA, which isn't junk, and our galactic chakras, which are energy centers we need to open. So everything that we could possibly need is within us. So if we got like junk DNA and it's not junk, then we need to start understanding, well, what is it then? Well, we could talk about the nucleic acids. We can get into the scientific terminology, or we can understand it on a more archetypal level and based in elements, earth, air, fire, water, ether. And I'm going to get into that. And it'll make it much easier to consciously switch these dormant strands on when it's not just like a bunch of, you know, scientific terms. It's actually something that we can relate to because we're experiencing it. Nature is an outer reflection of our soul, of our DNA, I mean, of everything. So anyway, and the galactic chakras are going to begin to help us to make, you know, important connections with our higher self, our galactic family, and anything, you know, out there, and, you know, that is, you know, really just with us, you know, wanting to see us overcome this most monumental time in human history, which is, you know, basically the end of the cabal and the deep state. And it's monumental because it's now exposed for all to see, to consciously remove themselves from, whereas before it was hiding. And all these different crimes against humanity, we weren't able to see. We did see some, but not all of it. We didn't see the architects behind the false flags of war, things like 9/11, you know, all these different things that are designed to just, you know, crush us. And this has been going on for a super long time. Saturn's known as the dominator and controller as far as its lower energies in the matrix, and the limitations, rules, and responsibilities is more of how it represents itself in the human sphere. So some limitations, rules, and responsibilities are good, but when there are limitations that are suppressive and oppressive and controlling to the point where it's keeping us from thriving, then those limitations and rules aren't any good. So when we work with Saturn, we want limitations and rules that work for us. You know, maybe it's going to bed at a certain time so we get a good night's sleep. Maybe it's the limitation of not overeating or drinking, or maybe it's a limitation of, you know, instead of like doing something super fun, you might just go out and get some exercise and get some structure in your life to be a healthy person. There's all sorts of limitations and rules that can really work. And a lot of things that we're responsible to that actually bring us a lot of love and joy. But when it's turned and inverted into, you know, limitations that control us and block us, we have so much to fight for right now. We're talking about future generations. And the thing is, it's like, we need to earn this by not being complacent. So the highest level of Saturn is teacher master. So through all that we're going through, isn't this where we can like pop out at the end? We can become teachers. We can have some level of self-mastery. And in doing that, we're able to help others. And when they see that there's way more to us than just maybe, you know, the election or a particular political party, and they know that, you know, we're representing something of a much larger order and bigger picture, you know, our words might be more effective, hopefully. I mean, I know sometimes I've probably lost a lot of people, you know, because I've just been very loud about this administration only because of how critical it is. But otherwise, you know, I go back into my sovereign zone. I don't really engage in the political realm because right now it's not about politics. So if it's not about politics, I'm going to show up and I'm going to do all I can. So Saturn also relates to the devil card in the tarot. And when it's upright, it represents temptation, unhealthy relationships, enslavement, materialism, bondage, fear, and feeling trapped. When it's reversed, it means a person is getting a grip over those forces. And it represents freedom from restraints, breaking from addictions, and like the divorce from any kind of bondage, any kind of attachment that isn't healthy. That represents sort of like the devil, you know, something that like a narcissistic personality, you know, or a partner that's abusive. And this is the kind of relationship that the old paradigm, the cabal, has with its humans. Is it's abusive, it's narcissistic, it's selfish, it's greedy, it steals, it lies, it does unspeakable crimes. And we're like in a relationship with it. So we need to get a divorce. We need to get a grip over Saturn. And every single one of us has work to do on that. And the card that follows the devil card is actually the Tower. If you look at the order of the archetypes, the Tower knocks down old structures to rebuild new structures. It's very connected to the planet Uranus. So anyway, the Draconian Orion group are also referred to as the Black Suns. Sons of Belial are the other controller group, and they're aligned. They've formed an alliance. They block the stargates on the planet. The Black Suns have reversed their DNA. It's a reverse 10 DNA strand, and it's running a reversal life current. They have a hierarchical system. Earth-based reptilians appear to be in command over EBE or biological entities known as small grays. And that's exactly what we might end up turning into if we get these kind of vaccinations. But I don't want to put any fear in anybody. Say you did get vaccinated, say something like that happened. People are like, oh, it's not reversible. You can't reverse it. I don't think anything's impossible. So, and I think there's going to be more information about how to undo some of these kind of damages. I can't just imagine that, you know, it's a done deal, especially if like a person did it without realizing. So I just feel that there's great, great power in spirit and anything's, you know, possible. But it seems though that as humans digressed through the different tactics that they're using, that they did become these beings that needed to abduct to get genetic material to save their dying race. But some have stayed owned and controlled by the Earth-based reptilians and are just, you know, doing, you know, their orders, you know, they're doing their dirty work. So you got two different types of grays, ones that I feel are still very owned by the reptilian agenda and some that are trying to heal and break free. And they're coming in from different times or different places in the timeline. But these aren't all grays. This is just a certain type. And then, of course, all reptilians aren't negative either. So you're dealing with, you know, just this small concentrated group. But it's very obvious and clear to me that grays, even tall whites, are modified and engineered humanoids or what might have been, you know, like Nordics even, that have slowly been assimilated into something else. And that's, you know, what the AI is all about. You know, the hive mind, assimilating us into AI obviously is going to digress us and our physical bodies are going to change. So we are at the crossroads right now of like moving in the direction of being, you know, more online with becoming an ascended master instead of, you know, a gray alien. A lot of readings that I've done, people say I used to be a gray, you know, and there are hybridization programs that have been healing, you know, this race. And they're called the Essassani, as you guys know, Bashar probably is one of them. So there is some hope there. And supposedly the Essassani want to reward us or pay us back for us helping them. with some of these programs. And so we might see something on a galactic scale intervene in amazing ways, but we want to be very, very discerning and careful. A lot of things can present themselves as being benevolent, and they absolutely aren't, as we all know. And there are technologies that can create a Nordic appearance when it's actually a reptilian. So we want like the real psychic and really tuned in people, you know, on the front lines of this, you know, when contact happens or any kind of disclosure comes out, so that, you know, we know what we're dealing with. I mean, I don't know how it's all going to look. I think people are going to be starting to get prepared for something maybe specific to them. And then we're going to have events that take place on a much bigger like level. These biological entities known as small grays have very limited levels of they access limited levels of biological immortality through the vampirism and siphoning of other living things, such as the planet Earth. So artificial timelines have been in the works for 26,000 years or so. Positive timelines connect with recognizing our divine blueprint and our true origins. The positive timeline, organic ascension, natural stargates opening, expansion, upgrades of our DNA. This is a stellar activation cycle window period, and it's our opportunity to get fully anchored on this path to avoid future repercussions that come from being immersed in the artificial matrix. Much of the benevolent ET visitations has to do with correcting this, but some are not, and they are part of the negative ET agenda. Anyway, immersed in the artificial matrix is definitely the mainstream media and the entertainment industries. You know, when you're an observer, you can look at these things without getting sucked in and programmed by it. You can observe and you can see the programs. So yeah, catastrophic timeline, that's negative ETs who have been manipulating the human world of affairs for thousands and thousands of years since the Atlantean cataclysm for their own purpose. They compromised their DNA on purpose and manipulated ours. Assimilation into AI through continual traumatic events. And so we're going through these continual traumatic events. And now the trauma is that maybe we don't think it's, you know, the virus is as bad as they all say. We have to suffer the consequences of this level of control, of telling us how we should relate to our own health. Socialism and communism literally takes over us. It's the ultimate form of control and our resources. So the lower the quality of overall energy, the more unstable and disconnected the personal and environmental experience on Earth will become. The higher the quality of overall energy, the more stable and connected the personal and environmental experience on Earth will become. So we want to create real, you know, stable energies of, you know, grounded with nature and the earth and good food and creativity and, you know, good friends and love and just, you know, that's a stable high frequency energy. And it's what allows us to ascend. It's an ascending hub. It gives us the accretions that we need to integrate light energy in order to begin to switch on the things that have been dormant. The descending hub, though, is low frequency. It's unstable. It's stressed, it's anxious, it's fearful, and it's got its mind wrapped up into belief systems that aren't in alignment with one's higher self. And so the body suffers. So technologies were put in place thousands of years ago in order to make it very, you know, difficult. For example, the Nephilim reversal grid technology is a massively complicated alien structure that has interfered with true spiritual marriage, or Hyros Gamos, as a possibility for human beings on the planet. Niberian diotic crystal is another negative ET technology control network. This affects the grids and have been placed in sacred sites. This is a sacred site such as Stonehenge. So those ley lines are connected to hierogamic union going all the way to Glastonbury. And so this created a lot of negative energy and a lot of overlay dark grids. There's a huge number of them all over the planet. And they've been, a lot of them have been repaired. But they put them in these locations for a reason, because in doing this to the earth and the circulated or the energy meridians and grids of the planet, its circulatory system, it directly impacts us. So, you know, and that's the whole idea, because we are a replica of the earth. So if they're able to manipulate that on the earth level, then it automatically manipulates us. And so when we come in through birth, through osmosis, we pick up on that. And so we got to, you know, be conscious of that. And that is what the override frequency is. When you're the override frequency, you begin to create corrections. You're a part of the healing process on multiple levels. But, you know, when we look at like Nephilim reversal grid, a lot of that comes through, you know, Hollywood and entertainment and magazines and the social conditioning. But when you become addicted to the bait that is presented in all forms of manipulation and deception, the architecture of this control system hooks into you and takes your vital force. This is what feeds the technologies, and it goes off planet as well. Our free energy has been used as a weapon against us. Different false archetypes are played out, and they are rewarded and encouraged in our society. Disclosure is coming from us, and our job is to recover from all the assaults, social engineering, and thousands of years of trauma. So this is what we're seeing and why people get so extreme, that you cannot like wake them up, because it's gotten so, it's taken over their nervous system. And it just gets worse and worse the more they feed it. And it can be very, very difficult to remove, and people have to be willing and wanting to. They have to have enough of a sense, okay, something's not right and I can't seem to unhook myself. Well, that's the place to start. So anyway, so we got the Nephilim reversal grid, but then, the Saturn moon matrix, back to that. The rings of Saturn, according to David Icke, are a massive broadcast system broadcasting a fake reality. DNA holds all the information we will ever need to build and maintain the human body. Researchers at Boston University and Harvard Medical School studied that 98% of our DNA that remains unable to be decoded is called trash DNA. So could you speak about the solar flash? It's hard to say when that event might take place. There's a lot of different sort of definitions of what that means. Some think it's like sort of like a rapture, or maybe even a judgment day, something related to just like Armageddon, or some kind of like reset, not talking about the global reset, but just like, a great awakening. And some have mentioned soul harvest. So it really kind of depends. Not everybody's going to experience these sort of things in the same way. So I feel like it's almost like an event that we're manifesting on our timeline. Of course, we are on that timeline with the collective, and I'm talking about the ascension timeline, because we got to figure that all of us that are here today are on the organic ascension timeline. So, this sort of event I feel correlates with the Pluto returns. Pluto's all about death, rebirth, alchemy, and transformation. So it's like a light event, like, okay, so solar flash, one would think of like liquid light. And those that are energetically and spiritually ready will begin to upgrade DNA, so it's a big sort of leap, I feel, in consciousness. I had dreams about it when I was a kid, this event taking place where light energy came out of the cosmos and hit the earth, and people thought it was like an atomic bomb, but it wasn't. Those that aren't able to handle it will probably struggle with the frequency, and it could wipe out a lot of people. So that's kind of how I look at it. I can't really predict when that's going to happen. And is it definitely going to happen, or is it a slower sort of unfolding process as we see this great awakening and this ascension window? We'll see. We shall see. But I definitely have always had visions about this taking place. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next question. Is Saturn bad? The Cuban Saturn is what I'm talking about. Yeah, that part of it's not good. You can't really, a planet's not really bad. Every planet's got sort of a consciousness and an energetic to it, but the planetary bodies connect with us and our own consciousness, our organs, our endocrine system, our chakra system. And so Saturn used to be a sun, and it became dark, and there's a history behind all of that. So it's sort of turned into its negative polarity. And the way that we can help shift Saturn back into a higher vibration is to shift the way that we relate to it, because it's the planet of structure. It rules the law of structure. It's connected to discipline, responsibilities, authority. So the dark part of it is negative authority, control, tyranny, control agendas. So that's the negative part of it. And then when we see the rings connect also with the moon and the Saturn moon matrix and this programming that has impacted a huge portion of our DNA, the junk DNA, and it sort of broadcasts an artificial reality and simulation. So the black cube part of it is what is being fed. The satanic ritual, abuse, and blood sacrifice on Earth. This is connected to the black cube within Saturn. It's sort of like a harvesting tank, which is really freaky. So that part of it is definitely not positive. And so as we are trying to take down the dark controller groups on the planet and call these things out, you know, we're healing this planetary body. We're healing our relationship with it. So exposing these crimes against humanity and putting an end to human trafficking and child trafficking rings, and calling out those in power that are engaged in these sort of ritual abuses will overthrow that tyrannical power and authority, dark authority. And then we'll begin to experience the higher side of Saturn. Scientists have also noted that the rings of Saturn have been dissolving, which would mean that that dark technology is breaking down. Tony Rodriguez has also talked about the moon one day possibly exploding. And because of the artificial component of the moon and the fact that it's sort of like a artificial satellite and a base, you know, that might help free us up as well. But yeah, it's like a ship. Supposedly there's like aliens inside. And I'm pretty much certain it's the Greys. So anyway, so that's the dark part of Saturn, and we are, you know, definitely healing it. It's connected to the Black Sun agenda, which is the draconian dark agenda, and so yeah, the Saturn's black cube holds a massive tank that is that harvesting station that utilizes the media as well. You know, anything that is about social engineering and mind control. It can harvest us. It's not just the ritual abuses. It's the greater sort of ritual of the sort of black magic trickery that comes through false news and fake history, false history, and all that kind of stuff. Because anytime we're not connected with our truth, we get easily drained. We're connected with a belief system outside of ourselves, and it's not authentic. And so it sucks on us. Okay, so I hope that answered that. And that's the thing, you know, when we're in a truth frequency, our bodies are able to transform and heal. So these false belief systems, I mean, people are so afraid of this virus, they should be more concerned about where their belief systems are going. Because we are moving into this ascension energy. We have been for a long time, and it upgrades our ability to transform and heal and alchemize things and neutralize dark weaponry and wipe out things easily, like a virus. Like we'd be moving into an energy that, you know, none of that should be feared, or you know, it's a part of the greater growth period that we're in, though, to face this challenge, because it's bringing on the Great Awakening. You know, when we're being pushed to the edge in the way that we are, it can force people to wake up, but it can also have the opposite effect, which is, you know, greater enslavement and control. So the first one's a major arcana. It's the moon, and the moon is about intuition, our emotional body, our sensitivities, you know, sort of navigating through the feeling nature, you know, just does that feel, does that feel like good or not good? You know, it's like being in touch with your intuition, and it's upright. So your intuition is very strong right now. And so, you know, it's kind of having that sense where you can kind of discern truth from the lies based on having this kind of strong intuition, because you just know. It's a knowingness, it's a feeling. So that's very strong. And there's a lot about just emotional contentment. You've got the happy card. It's the 9 of Cups. And although it's not a major arcana, I always like to bring this particular one up because it's one of my favorite minor arcana cards, because everybody's happy, swimming by the pool, playing their drums. And it's just like bright and high vibrational, positive energy. So a lot of it is about emotional contentment in the face of a lot of the adversity, a lot of the struggles that people are going through, and the confusion about what's going on in the world. And you're doing very good at like not absorbing too much. And that's probably been something you've been working on for a while, is to not take on everybody's stuff, and to be able to still be sensitive and tuned in and intuitive and aware without getting like the empathic overload or taking on too much. So keeping that vibration high through just contentment, taking care of your needs, and making sure that you're doing things that bring about joy and fun is sort of how you can shield yourself and protect yourself from taking on too much, or letting the stuff going on in the outer world become too overwhelming. And at the core of your energy, you got the major arcana of Justice, which is all about balance. So you're holding a lot of balance, and the emotional well-being is key for you to stay and feel in balance. And so you're doing a really good job with that. And you're just, you got the devil card, but it's in the placement of something that you're concerned about. And that it's in the placement of the reading of the things that you're sort of wary of, or well, it's considered the placement of what one fears and what one also hopes for, right? So I would definitely say this is probably something that would bring about a little bit more anxiety than not. So that just means basically this archetype has to do with control, tyranny, and the dark agendas, right? So it's in the placement of like concern, but it's not in you. It's not in your system. It's not an energy that you're holding. It's like you're holding it over here and you're aware of it, but you're not allowing it to penetrate your being. And so you're staying sovereign, because when it penetrates our being, we start to get kind of siphoned off of, and it just, can create a lot of constriction and anxiety. Then you got the Chariot though, and this is the energy that you're moving into. This is kind of what's coming in, what you're stepping into, and it's the Chariot, body, mind, spirit integration. The Chariot is very much, our own personal vehicle integrated with mind, body, spirit, able to move forward and manifest victory. Doesn't mean it's going to be easy, but it's like, you're like the Chariot, you're creating, victory. And positive developments are happening. So there's a great flow there. There's a really good card. And then you got the Hangman, which is a major arcana. And the Hangman has a lot to do with surrender to source, and kind of like it's in the hands of God, and just holding that trust and maintaining emotional wellness and balance is everything. So if you notice, anxiety start to come in, or you start to feel that overwhelm, just press the reset button, do something wonderful for yourself, nurture yourself, have the boundaries where you need them to be able to, just take care of your well-being, and you're in great shape, and it looks like things are falling into place. But there's not a whole lot we can do about some of the outer events, except for, be a participant in our micro world to the collective consciousness, and hold strong intent and engage our creative energy in really positive ways, so that our creative energy doesn't get entangled in a lot of the propaganda and the fear and all these different tactics that they use to throw us off. And you're doing awesome. And you're going to hold a lot of strength for those around you too. You'll help them feel like reassured, because you have that spiritual connection, and that you're just in that divine flow and alignment. So it's all really good.
Laura, Happy New Year. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're so welcome. Okay, take care. A lot of these changes have been taking place, and it's kind of leading up to a peak time, which the solstice sort of represents with the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction in the sign of Aquarius. Jupiter and Saturn just left the sign of Capricorn this week. We just moved through the 13th sign of Fiacus. That ended on December 17th. So as we get closer to Jupiter-Saturn conjunction, which some have noted looks like the Star of Bethlehem because of how close in proximity they are, this particular alignment hasn't happened since 1405. It's gonna probably feel uplifting. Like there might be some event that puts a lot of positive energy into the hearts and minds of people. It might be just a really, really positive development that we experience on the world stage. But regardless of what happens, as far as what we see in the world, it could be a big breakthrough about, this virus or indication that the New World Order really isn't going to succeed, which it's not. But the knowingness and the feeling of it should really be strong December 21st. And it'll be something that we each feel in our own lives. So, more than likely, there's just going to be a lot of positivity. I was talking about it last night on Edge of Wonder. And Jupiter is very benevolent, very high vibrational. It expands and illuminates everything it touches. In the sign of Aquarius, when we think of the Aquarian age, it's a lot more about our higher mind. It's about moving into higher energies connected to sovereignty, liberation, and truth. But the shadow of Aquarius and Uranus is dark technologies, because there's a shadow side to every planet. So if we're not going through the awakening part of it, and we're always in fear, it's easy for us to stay hooked to the darker side of any planetary body's consciousness. So the shadow of a planet that's all about liberation would be false liberation, like transhumanism or negative solutions, because we're not trusting our own power. We're not allowing ourselves to go through the upgrade, recognizing that we're the most advanced technology. I'm not saying all technology is bad at all. There's a lot of really positive technology and ways that we can use it. Benevolent, higher sort of ET sort of technology, free energy, you know, all that kind of stuff. So we're moving more into that kind of world, but depending on the level of a person's consciousness will determine how they experience it and what sort of timeline they're on. So for those that are really on board with this positive flow, you know, more than likely are going to have a lot of like big breakthroughs, and Jupiter, you know, will sort of neutralize a lot of the darkness of Saturn as well. And as Saturn moves into Aquarius, it gives it, you know, already a higher, you know, kind of energy. But it's up to us to, you know, hold, you know, a connection to the frequencies of these planetary bodies and alignments that are of the highest expression, that bring about our greater potential. So it requires a lot of inner work and a lot of trust in the self, and you know, grounding with nature, because you know the planetary consciousness is bringing about ascension. The planetary bodies encoded with ascension, you know, energies. The mother energy has returned. It's a 13-dimensional monadic core, and these activations are taking place. So we'll probably feel more of that lightness of energy as we've all gone through this collective dark night of the soul. You know, it's like things will feel a lot lighter and brighter, and it's just going to get stronger as we approach December 21st. And depends where one is in the world. You know, I mean, I can't say that everybody across the board is necessarily going to feel this way, especially if they're in lockdown or there's a lot of BS mandates going on. But we have to know and remember it's temporary. And no matter what we kind of see in that regard, not to give our power away, to stay in a high, you know, frequency, to feel really encouraged, knowing that the planetary body and the consciousness of this planet wants what we want. And the mother energy is here to nurture her children and help us to move through this very, very dark period where they're holding on to us for dear life. And this is going to take place for a bit because Saturn is going to square Uranus all into like next year and the year after. So there's going to be a bit of that power struggle going on where, you know, the whole process of liberation is not going to come right away as Saturn makes a square. The squares are friction. It means it's holding on, doesn't want to let us go. It's going to create all sorts of scenarios that might feel defeating or discouraging, but we just have to keep holding our alignment and our connection with, you know, these, you know, higher energies, because we are generators. I mean, we're creative beings. We're always creating through, you know, from our thoughts, from our, you know, actions and our words. And we're in a huge growth period right now when it comes to the throat chakra, because the North and South node are in Gemini and Sagittarius. The South node's in Sagittarius, the North node's in Gemini. So there's a lot about just the words we're choosing to speak, because our words create our reality. And if there's mind control or social engineering or falsities, then we're amplifying the artificial through our words. So this is part of the growth period, is connecting with the truth frequency so that our words are activating. So our words are creative and co-creative with the flow of this ascension energy. So integrity, you know, is in compassion and doing what we can to maintain spiritual hygiene, you know, because just like anything, we have to do that in the physical world. We have to do that with our mental health, our emotional health. But when we don't have spiritual hygiene, we attract entities and archons. And so we have to, you know, just take good care of ourselves in that way, because we are literally helping to manifest this ascension energy through the vehicle of our human, you know, consciousness and vessel. And they're trying to hijack it, and they're doing everything they possibly can. But no doubt we're on the organic ascension timeline, all of us. So we'll just do our best to assist friends and family, and especially the shot. You know, that is the most ultimate weapon in these times to sabotage what's available for us. So that's going to be really difficult, because we're going to see friends and loved ones wanting to go that route. But fortunately, the vaxes were released during the Trump administration. So more than likely, they're not the weaponized version, but still, got to be careful and extremely discerning. So I think there's going to be a lot more positive energy coming through. And, but remember, every time it gets heavy, it's just something that you're releasing or purging. It's temporary. You know, the true vibration of the truth frequency is a very high vibration, and it's filled with wisdom and love. And it knows, it has a knowingness about where we're all heading. And it helps us to align with synchronicities and those spontaneous downloads. And it gives us the information we need when we need it most. So if we can keep ourselves from being distracted, we will get the guidance we need when we need it most. It's when we watch too much television or allow our belief systems or our mental bodies to get engaged and entangled and just all the junk outside of us. We can't hear our inner voice. We can't tap into our intuition, and we miss the downloads. And instead of getting downloads, we get panic attacks and anxiety. So just, hold space for yourself. When you feel anxiety, just get away from everyone and everything, shut down everything and just breathe. And then before you know it, you'll start to get messages and guidance. And that's what this next year is all about. That's what the Aquarian energy is all about. And that's what December 21st is really kicking off, is our ability to really be aligned with higher truth, our own higher self. And then how we integrate that into the physical world will allow it to become a way of life instead of just a concept, where we have lower self, higher self, where the integration of polarity between the higher and the physical plane will begin to really, really take off.